Good afternoon, everybody. You're watching Liz Live. This is Elizabeth Stadtlander, marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor, coming to you live 3 days a week this week. I'm putting out a new schedule, and we'll talk about that. But I want to let everybody know that I'm still going live 3 days a week, and I'm going to be putting out a schedule at the beginning of every week so people know when to tune in. I'm actually getting flooded with clients in, panic this week. And it started over the weekend, and it started like a wave, literally, of people considering suicide, people in depression, people suffering really bad anxiety. And I had been pretty quiet up until this weekend. The first 2 weeks of the shutdown were difficult. They were quiet for me, and then all of a sudden, people started to come back. And then this week it's only a few days into it, and it's been really, really an intense weekend. And I think what's happening is people have been through 30 days and had different expectations that maybe we would, open back up by now. Maybe the payments, the money would have come in by now, and none of those things are happening. And people I think it's just hitting them right now that, this is a scary time. So I wanted to bring in our dear friend and producer, Tia Papajaz, because she was willing to talk about her experience, and she's been quarantined in her home with her two kids for about 5 weeks now, Tia?
Since about March 13th or 4th, so no, probably about, 4, I guess.
Okay. And can you tell me how's it been for you? What's it been like to be just stuck in the house with your kids, having to become, a school teacher, working with the kids in school and trying to manage everything? What's it been like for you?
Well, at first it was fine because everyone said more time with your kids and more time to do this. And if I had more time, I clean. And then it kind of was like, all right, homeschool teaching, let's try this, no big deal. Well, all of a sudden, once the kindergarten classes went online, it became just super duper intense. So we've been kind of wading through it. We take a lot of walks. We've done field trips in the woods. We play outside. It just, sometimes I just have to lock myself in a room and say, all right, mom needs 5 minutes.
Right.
Or my car has become my new favorite place. It's like my sanctuary now.
So what's it been like, have you been experiencing yourself? Have you been experiencing any anxiety? And if so, what would you say triggers your anxiety right now being at home with the kids?
Well, in the beginning it was fine. I mean, the kids had questions, but you could kind of answer them. But then, now they're like, okay, they're getting antsy, so it's making me antsy. And, normally during the day I'll watch TV for a few minutes, turn it off, and I've just not been turning the TV on at all. I've been trying to stay away from social media, and honestly, I kind of became a little bit of a hermit. I really haven't been talking to too many people because it's just, I don't know. And then with all this unemployment, I'm not working anywhere right now. So I applied on the 15th of March, and I keep seeing on TV when I do watch it, oh, it's coming. And we are now almost a whole month from the day that I applied, and there's still not been one deposit in my account. Mm-hmm. And that is making me a little antsy.
Yeah, and I think that, your story is the basic American story, although I think, I know you personally, and I know that you have a good head on your shoulders, and you know how to keep things moving, and you get along pretty well with your husband, which makes a difference too. What I'm getting is the couples that went into Corona with problems those problems are just exacerbated and inflamed because everyone's outlets for anxiety, like the gym, going out, seeing friends, it's gone. And so, it's like home or nothing. And there's nowhere, a lot of my clients are running into their cars to talk to me for session because they can't get any privacy in their houses. So I think now that it's been 30 days, it's starting to get to people. And, no one's gotten any money or any loan money or anything. So, are you hearing the same thing from your friends and family?
I do, but I mean, I have some family that's very anxious about this and has been anxious about this since the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And I have friends that, didn't get along so great with their husband or wife for this, and now it's like they're clawing at the walls to get out. Some people have even said, I'd rather get the virus. And I'm like,
oh,
really?
No.
Like, come on.
Yeah, definitely no.
I think that's like something that's kind of desperate and a desperate cry for help. But, I mean, I just feel like as long as everyone has their oar and we're rowing this boat, we can get through this. I mean, the kids are adapting and things are okay right now. It was a little scary last week when they announced that all the Pittsburgh schools were going to be shut down for the rest of the school year. Mm-hmm. And, Connor, my son, he has been done better with the homeschooling on the computer, but I think it was because, I'm going to get to go back to school with my friends. So now today has been the first day where he's had to actually go online schooling knowing that this is the rest of the year.
This is it. I mean, are your kids upset, T? Are they upset they're not going back to school?
Not about school per se, but,
seeing their friends.
Yeah, my daughter's been fine. I mean, she's like, all right, I like hanging out with you, and that can, get to be a lot with a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But, Connor's really upset. He just he needs that social interaction. He's a lot like me in that respect. Mm-hmm. Just to watch depression in a kid is hard. Yeah. And I think that's what we're starting to get into with him, because it's like he has friends that live 4 doors up, and he has friends that live across the woods from us, which really isn't far, and he's understanding why he can't see them, but at the same time, he doesn't understand.
Right.
It's like, well, I'm not sick and they're not sick. Why can't they come down and, just shoot basketball with me? I'm
right.
Like, not a good idea.
Well, and I think that's, I'm just marking that down, because what I'm going to do today, in addition to talking about all the mental health problems that I know everyone's going through, is how to talk to your kids about this and how to explain this. I couldn't do it, but if I could show you guys the messages that are coming into my cell phone in just the past 3 days, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, it's all of a sudden it hit. So, Tia, I miss you so much. I haven't seen you in I don't know how long, and I really appreciate you kind of talking to us about what you're going through and what you're experiencing, and I'm going to make sure that I continue to address all those things that you mentioned today. And if you have any other questions that you want me to answer, please put them into the screen so I can answer you, throughout the show.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So thanks, T. I'm going to hang up and wish you and your family lots of luck. Okay. And thank you for being here today. Okay. Bye, Tia. Bye. Okay. So I just wanted to check in with Tia, and I wanted everyone out there, I thought everyone could relate to a lot of the things that she's going through. She's home, she's in charge of 2 small children, her husband is still working to some degree, and it's very difficult to manage everything in one place and never get a break. And I think that now that it's been a full month and we don't really have any more answers today than we really did a month ago, that the reality is starting to set in with people. And I'm noticing that, I'm getting all these outcries for sessions, and it almost feels more like crisis counseling, where people they're having to negotiate all of these new boundaries in the family that never existed before. So, for example, if one person is working and one person is staying home, how do you decide who's going to do what if the roles are reversed from what they used to be? So let's say, for example, both people work, the husband's laid off, so the wife is still working, and she's the only one who can bring money in. Then the husband might have to pick up some more of the typical mother roles with the children and in the house, and that might be a really strange adjustment for a lot of people. So these are the kind of things that I'm hearing about. I'm also hearing couples arguing about what boundaries are they going to have actually within their own home. So, for example, maybe one person is really laid back about it and the other person is really worried about it and they want these really strict boundaries in the household. How do we negotiate that? So how do we negotiate the new parenting roles? How do we negotiate the fact that we can't go anywhere? How do we negotiate what the rules are going to be with other people coming to the home, with how you're going to handle yourself? I've talked to some couples where one person, is insisting that, the others, that the spouse do all of these really strict measures that he feels are ridiculous and she feels very serious about, and they're arguing about that. And I've heard this story many times in the past 2 weeks. So there's a whole new layer and a whole new pile of issues for people to fight about. So if there wasn't enough before, now there's all of these new boundaries and new issues that couples have to negotiate. Who's going to go to the grocery store? Who's going to stay in? I've heard things with couples who are time sharing with their kids. So maybe the child spends so much time with the mom and so much time with the father. Is everybody's social distancing the same so that everybody feels safe? Even so, people who are in charge of the same child, in other words, are they practicing the same boundaries and measures to protect against COVID? Because I've heard of situations where they're not, and then a choice has to be made about either taking a child in full time or giving it up for a few months. I mean, this is causing family and couples issues like, frankly, I haven't seen in a long time. And that's the couples and family issues. Let's talk about then the individual issues. The individual issues of anxiety, of some hopelessness, some depression, because again, we don't really have any information as to when this is getting any better or when this is going to change. So we're out in the middle of the ocean, and we've been told that help is coming, and we're out in the middle of the ocean and we're treading water and we're trying to stay alive, and we've been told help is coming, don't worry, help is coming, and then the help hasn't gotten here, and you're just treading and treading and treading water. And I think that that's really what it feels like right now. It feels like we're out in the middle of the huge ocean that's bigger than all of us, that's completely out of our control, and we've been told that a help is coming, but we haven't gotten that help yet. And there are clients of mine that have been absolutely financially devastated by all of this, and it's just heartbreaking to hear all the different calls coming in and everything that's happening. It's a sad time. So I'm going to start looking at the screen and see what kind of questions we have. And hello to everybody who's watching. I see there's a bunch of questions here. So how do I stay informed while keeping my anxiety from skyrocketing when everywhere I look there is the coronavirus? It's a good question, because again, another boundary that has to be negotiated is how much time am I going to allow myself to spend watching the news every day, and then if I'm not watching the news every day, how do I stay informed? And I mean, this is something that I've been experimenting with personally, so I could try to talk to you guys about this. But, I didn't watch much of the news over the weekend, and I felt really lost this morning. I mean, all these things had happened that I really didn't know about. So my anxiety might have been down a little bit, but then I didn't like the way I felt this morning when I thought, oh my God, I missed all these important things that are happening. So I think that this is a boundary that everybody has to negotiate for themselves. We all know what our threshold is for pain, and we all know what our threshold is for trauma. And if you're finding that the news and watching the news all the time and looking on the internet every night, constantly is causing you too much anxiety and too much dysfunction, then I would say you're a person that really needs to limit how much you watch. So maybe you watch it in the morning, maybe give yourself 25 minutes to watch a newscast of your choice or read the internet, for a little while, and then that's it. Because if you do it before bed, you're going to get extremely anxious. So I would recommend, if you know what your pain threshold is, respect that. And when you're watching the news, you're not going to see any good news, really. So you have to understand that the news you're going to get is going to be depressing. And that's part of why I've been doing these shows, because I think that I can try and keep people informed without scaring you half to death. And, I can be a little bit more practical because I'm not trying to sensationalize anything. I have a friend who has a wedding planned for June, and she doesn't know if it will still happen. How can she better deal with that uncertainty? You can't, there's no way to know right now. I mean, obviously, she would have to keep in touch with the venue, and, I would plan that it's not happening. I mean, I don't see how that would even be possible unless you wanted to, maybe try to do it somehow virtually. But I would say, expecting a wedding for June is probably not happening. That would be my best guess. But again, nobody really knows. Really, nobody really knows. So I'm getting some questions also about your comment. Okay, wait. Lisa has a comment. Some people seem to think that kids get enough interaction with their friends from social media, but that is not true based on what we are seeing in this quarantine. They need to hang out with their friends and have human interaction. Social media is not a replacement. And Lisa, I couldn't agree more with you. It's funny because, we're forced to live through social media right now. We're absolutely forced into it. We have no choice. And as you know, Lisa, you were part of the online Passover Seder I did last week with my family because we couldn't even, celebrate our holidays, and people were unable to go to church and their places of worship. So we're not meant, any psychologist will tell you that human beings are social creatures, and we were not meant to be isolated. We just aren't meant for that. So what's happening, what I see, Lisa, is that from staying in the home and even not being exposed to sunlight the way that we should be, and not moving our bodies the way that we should move them, or eat the way we should, eat to nurture our body in a healthy way, everyone is getting so depressed that they're letting all of these things slide, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Because when you're not being exposed to sunlight and you're not exercising and eating right, then your serotonin, which is what makes you feel good, it's a neurotransmitter in your brain that makes you feel good, is going to start depleting, and your brain's going to start producing a lot of cortisol. And cortisol is a stress hormone. And so I think that young kids, more so than anyone, because they don't have experience in this world to have developed proper coping skills, are, running on stress hormones and don't understand. Children really don't have a very good understanding of what's going on. And I think we're all kind of, unfortunately, falling into a depression, even if we're not depressive people, just based upon the physical changes of our lives. So I noticed with myself, last week I stayed in my home for almost 3 days straight, and the weather in Pittsburgh was horrible, and it was rainy, and I couldn't go out or to even take the dogs out, and I was working from home. And when I finally left, which was Friday night, so like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I hadn't left. And when I actually walked outside on Friday, my eyes could barely handle the sunlight. And I have huge windows where I live. It's not like I didn't have some light, but I mean, I just wasn't exposed to the direct sunlight outside. And it was actually hard for me to keep my eyes open and for my eyes to adjust to the sunlight. And I thought, wow, this is serious. I mean, this is really changing the way that our bodies are used to operating. And I don't know if any of you saw the show on Friday, but Dr. John Metcalf was talking about medical marijuana and your immune system and how it could potentially be helpful against the COVID virus. And he was talking about the immune system and how to supplement and how important exercise and routine is right now, because we're not able to socialize with other people. I think those of us who are, blessed enough to be able to work right now, we're looking at screens. I mean, my practice is 100% FaceTime and Skype right now. And so I'm staring at a screen all day, and it's just not healthy. So I've been getting calls from physicians, other therapists, everybody this past about 10 days. I think it's really starting to really get to all of us. And I think that we need to have a discussion about how we're going to handle it. I'm guessing nobody out there who might be feeling depressed maybe wouldn't want to discuss that. But I would love to hear from any of you that do have questions for me about what you're going through right now and what you're feeling. Something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is living quarters. Imagine people who don't live in a home, who live in, I was thinking about people living in Section 8 housing right now, how horrible it would be because you're stuck in such a small place. And so those of us who are watching that, have beautiful homes, that's something to be so thankful for, because most of America is, by and large, lives in an impoverished way. And so if you have even the simple things right now, like a home of your own, or, space in your living quarters, and, sunshine, a little bit of sunshine, I think that's something to really be grateful for right now. I have a question on the screen. Hi, April. What is the best way to help children deal with this when they are getting more irritable with parents and siblings? I got cut off, siblings, but I get What is the best way to help children deal with this when they are getting more irritable with parents and siblings, angry they can't go to school or see their friends? That's a great question. That's something I wanted to address from my conversation with Tia. So first of all, how you communicate to your children about this very much depends on the age and the developmental stage they're in. And this is something I talked a little bit about last week, where you can't you can't explain the coronavirus to somebody the same way to somebody who's 5 and to somebody who is 19. Those are two different conversations. And right now, all of the college kids are home, back living with their parents. All the kids are home no matter what age. So we've got full houses and changing dynamics in a changing world, and we're all trying to keep up and adjust to it. So I think that, I would recommend, and I'm sure all of you watching have already done this, is to sit down and have a very direct conversation with your children about what's going on. And of course, when you are talking to them about what's going on, you have to take their age into consideration. The younger they are, or maybe the more anxious of a child that they are, you might want to, sugarcoat it, but don't be so detailed in your description. You could just say right now, there's a time where a lot of people can get sick, and so we all just have to stay home so that people don't get sick. Just keep it simple and reassure your children that you love them and that you're going to be here for them and you're going to take care of them. That's the most important thing I think you can communicate to your children. Now, clearly, if you're dealing with an older child, let's say 15 to 20 in that range, those kids, those teenagers, they get it. So you can be a little bit more frank with them. You don't have to be so, dancing around the subject. You can say to them, look, you need to stay home because this particular virus is very dangerous to the elderly people. It's which might be their grandparents. Put it in some kind of perspective where it hits home. Because if teenagers are famous for being, somewhat narcissistic, and, they really are only capable in many ways of dealing with their own needs and their own wants. So I'm sure that all of you who are parents to teenagers are probably very frustrated right now, because teenagers, they really just want to do what they want to do. And what do teenagers want to do? They want to be with their friends, as Lisa was saying earlier. And that's the only thing that really matters to them until they get out of their early 20s. And that's just the way it is. So I know a lot of parents struggle with keeping their teenagers home, especially the ones over 18. It's almost impossible. And so I think for that age group, maybe you have to scare them a little bit, in a sense that, understand that if you leave the house, every time you leave the house, you're putting yourself at risk to either get this virus or pass it on to us. And so we don't know how all people respond to this. So it could make mom or dad really, really sick. So we would really appreciate it if you didn't go out, because I assume, young person, that you would like mom and dad to be around. So I think the older kids, you need to maybe spell it out a little more directly, where the really little kids, you have to be much more delicate and brief about the situation. And if you need more specific advice about something like this, you can certainly call me, because it is very age specific on how you want to talk to kids. But they all need to know, because they know that things have changed. They know they're not going to school. They know they're not seeing their friends. And I think they are going to start to get, as April was mentioning, irritable, angry, and so are we as the parents, irritable and angry. So it's really important, I think, to set up some structure for the kids. Kids like structure, even though they might fight it, they like it, because it reduces anxiety from them, because they know exactly what's coming and when. So they know what time they're eating breakfast, what time they're going to bed, what time they get to watch their shows. Maybe the weekend nights, bedtime changes a little bit. But I think right now, structure is critical for families. I think it's critical for all of us. So that would be one of my first, recommendations. I know if I didn't get up and see my clients and have this ability to interact with other people, I'd be going out of my mind right now. So I have to push myself, because it's easy to lay in bed. So you really have to push yourself to get up, get on a routine, get on a structure. Be your own boss, so to speak. Have expectations of yourself each day and try to meet them. I think with kids, physical activity is critical for children. Children, they love to play, and they have lots of energy to do that. And so I think that parents need to make sure that they have plenty of time for physical activity for the children, just like they would have recess in school. Remember, children do other things in school besides English, math, and science. They also have art and music and phys ed class. And so if you can facilitate those creative and physical projects for the kids, I think that is going to be really, really helpful. You can't create and duplicate. As Lisa Shirey said earlier, you cannot duplicate human interaction. You just can't. And we have to deal with second best right now. We just have to. We have to be big girls and boys and understand that this is the way the world is right now. And we actually don't know when it's going to change. We don't even know yet what the damage is going to be to us emotionally, psychologically, mentally, in the next few months. We don't know. And I don't mean that we're all going to be damaged goods after this, because we're not going to be. I think many of us will be better people for this. But we really don't know, because the economy is such a big piece of this. We really don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what unemployment is going to look like in 2-3 months. Are we going to just bounce back? I don't see how that's even possible. I would love that to be true. I mean, man, would I love that to be true. But I don't see how that's possible when so many people have had such dramatic financial changes in their life. And I think that's going to become, if it isn't already, the number two. I think the number one problem I'm seeing is the angst and the sort of biological depression that's happening just naturally for all of us. That's the number one, like where I talk to people and they sort of sound like they're going to crack. And I'm trying desperately to just help bring people back to earth and put things in perspective for them. But the financial piece is going to be the next big piece that's going to, it's already been behind a couple of, suicidal people that I've spoken to. They just don't know where the money's coming from. So let's see what we have on the screen here. Some of my friends are not taking this seriously. How do I convince them that this is serious and getting sick is not a joke? One way that that's part of one of the problems that I see with a lot of the couples right now, because women in general, we tend to be much more proactive with our health, and we tend to be much more protective of our nest, so to speak, of our home. And men, because you guys have to be strong and tough and you can fight and face anything, you guys tend to blow this off. I've seen a lot of men blowing this off like it's nothing. I'm not saying all men, but I've certainly seen that. And that's why, if you look at the statistics, so many more men are dying from coronavirus than women. And my personal feeling about that is because women are so much more careful. And I'm seeing a lot of tension between husbands and wives about this very topic. We're sharing this home, but I have one idea of how we should be staying safe, and you have another one. And these things are very hard to negotiate, and I think that these are things that we really have to respect, of each other. If I'm really careful, don't come in my house with shoes. Don't come. I mean, I have all kinds of boundaries right now, but that's a hard question. I think that you're never going to really change someone's mind who thinks it's not serious until they get hit by it personally. And I'm starting to see that is happening. I'm hearing people call me that someone they love has died from COVID. It's starting to really get serious. And I mean, at this point, if someone doesn't take it seriously, then I'm not sure there's a lot you can do for them except stay away from them, because they're the ones who are going to get it, and they are the ones who are going to pass it on. So if I were you, if I know that anyone's not taking it seriously, then I just make sure you stay far away from them. And unfortunately, this is a free country, and we all do have the freedom to decide how we want to handle this. And there's no real law at this point that says we have to do anything. We're just doing it because we understand, how important it is to keep each other from getting sick. So the final question we have here today is, do you suggest therapy for children after this? Yeah, I do suggest therapy for kids that need it. I don't think that every child needs it just because they're going, they're going through this. So I don't think that, I don't believe that just because something bad happens to a child, they have to go to therapy. I think that when children require therapy, it's always most important to start with the parents, and the parents need to look in the mirror and ask themselves if they are doing something right or wrong about all this, about the child's behavior. And then if the child really needs help because you're seeing changes in grades, in health, in mental health, sleeping patterns, eating habits, then you go ahead and contact a therapist. But I don't believe in just sending kids to therapy just because something hard happened in their lives. I don't believe in that, and that's coming from a therapist. You don't want to overdo the therapy, because that can have an adverse effect. Because when children are sent to therapy when they're little and they don't understand it, they might think something's wrong with them, and they might develop a negative self-image because of that. So you really, if children are going into therapy, you really want to be able to conceptualize and frame exactly what the problem is and if it's really serious enough to get them to therapy. But I don't know. I think children are very resilient, and I think that the toughest part for children right now is not seeing their friends and not being able to play outside as much. And I think, those are the main things. I mean, we are going through a grief period, a period of loss of the life we once knew and the relationships we once had, and they all look so different now. And that is a fact, and that is something that we all have to learn to deal with on some level. So I think that if anyone has any more questions, before we wrap it up, please, send them now. I mean, we had some great questions today. We talked about how to talk to your children about what's happening in the world right now. And we discussed it being very case specific and age specific. And if you need further consult on this, of course, I'm available to you on this particular subject. We talked about the biological changes that are happening in our body right now just by the very nature of the huge and significant changes in our patterns, in our lifestyle. So we can't interact with other people. We can't leave the house. We're having a high production of cortisol. We can't even adjust to sunlight that well if we're not leaving the house. So there's so many biological changes that are happening right now as a result of all these huge life changes, biologically and emotionally and psychologically. So there's just so many things, so many changes that we need to be aware of, and we need to really work on how to deal with those things. Structure is extremely important, and of course, talking to your friends and family and reaching out to a therapist for help is critical. We have one final question. I am afraid my brother is over-medicating himself to deal with some of his anxiety. Is it okay for me to say something? Yeah, I think it's okay to say something, because, I don't know what you mean by over-medicating, but is he taking pills? Is he drinking too much? Is he endangering himself? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. Is my brother putting himself or others in danger by the overuse of whatever it is he's using? That's the first question. And I think you have to be very careful how you approach this topic, because you're going to get a lot of defensive reaction, because when people are using substances, they don't like to admit it and they will lie and cover it up. So lower your expectations, but I wouldn't come out and just attack him because of it. I would just say, hey, how's it going? Are you feeling particularly anxious? How are you dealing with your anxiety? And maybe approach it that way rather than just coming in for the kill and directly asking him, hey, are you over-medicating? Because of course he's going to say no. Most people would say no to that. But that's a whole nother show for a whole nother topic on addiction and approaching people with addiction. But these questions were fantastic today. I hope that it was helpful for everyone. I have put out a schedule of the Liz Live shows that are happening this week. So we have, today was at 12:30. Tomorrow is, I believe, 3 o'clock with David Shivery, who's coming on to talk politics. We're talking corona politics tomorrow. Why is there even politics surrounding a virus. How bizarre is this country? Well, David and I are going to talk about that tomorrow at 3 o'clock. It's going to be really fun. And then on Thursday at 2:30, I'm going to be addressing more issues of grief and loss when it comes to our lives. Not necessarily a particular person, but just when it comes to our lives. So we have a really exciting week of shows. I have been, I'm going to start trying to send out a schedule because my practice is starting to get so busy. I'm not really going to be able to do these every day, but I'm going to do at least 3 days a week. And, you know, everyone, please know that I am available to you for therapy outside of these shows if anyone needs it, even if it's just one session. But if you need it, call fast, because I can tell you my schedule's booking up really, really quickly in these times. So, Lisa, I will talk to you soon. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. If not for it, I would not be able to communicate and make this an important hour for everybody out there, and I can only hope that it's helpful. And I look forward to seeing everybody back here on Liz Live tomorrow afternoon with Doc Shirey talking about politics on the coronavirus. See everyone back here tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Have a great day.